Lieutenant Oliver Wright stared through the viewport of his small ship as Centauri Station Alpha came into view. The massive rotating structure looked like a giant wheel in space, its spokes gleaming under the light of Alpha Centauri's twin stars. After 3 weeks of space travel, he was glad to finally see his destination. Centauri Station Alpha to approaching vessel. A calm voice spoke through his communication system. Please identify yourself. This is Lieutenant Oliver Wright, Earth Space Security Force. Sending my clearance codes now. He pressed a few buttons on his control panel, transmitting his credentials. The station's huge docking bay doors opened slowly, reminding Oliver of a monster's mouth. His ship's computer guided the vessel inside, where robotic arms took control and brought it to a gentle stop. As Oliver stepped out of his ship, he immediately felt the artificial gravity pull at his body. Being from Earth, he was used to much stronger gravity, making his movements easy and light here. The station's rotation created this fake gravity, and according to his briefing, something was wrong with it. A tall woman in a blue uniform waited for him at the dock entrance. She had gray hair tied back in a neat bun and stood very straight, like someone who was used to being in charge. Lieutenant Wright, I'm Station Administrator Margaret Blackwood. She held out her hand, and Oliver shook it firmly. Thank you for coming so quickly. Call me Oliver, please, he said, adjusting the strap of his bag on his shoulder. Your message said you're having problems with the station's rotation. Margaret nodded, leading him toward a transport tube. We've had strange things happening for the past month. Systems failing for no reason, rotation speeds changing slightly, but our engineers can't find anything wrong. She sounded worried, even though she tried to hide it. As they stepped into the transport tube, Oliver felt a slight shake that shouldn't have been there. Most people wouldn't notice it, but his Earth-evolved senses picked it up right away. Did you feel that? He asked. Margaret looked confused. Feel what? A vibration in the tube. It's not right. Oliver frowned. Your alien engineers might have missed it because their worlds have lower gravity. We humans are more sensitive to these things. They got off at the station's main control level, where screens covered the walls showing different parts of the station. Oliver noticed something else strange. The floor seemed to tilt very slightly every few minutes, but none of the station's instruments showed any problems. Here's what we know, Margaret said, pulling up some data on a screen. Over the past month, we've had 37 system failures. Nothing major yet, but they're happening more often. She pointed to a chart showing the increasing number of problems. Oliver walked around the control room, letting his natural human instincts take in everything. Are there any patterns to when these failures happen? None that we can find. Our best engineers, human and alien, have checked everything twice. Margaret sounded frustrated. That's why we called you. We need someone with different skills. You mean you need a Deathworlder, Oliver said with a small smile. Humans were called Deathworlders because Earth's high gravity and harsh conditions had made them stronger and more sensitive to danger than most alien species. Yes, Margaret admitted. We need someone who can notice things our instruments might miss. Someone with instincts evolved on a dangerous world. Oliver stopped walking and turned to face her. Administrator Blackwood, I need to see all your maintenance records, crew logs, and system reports for the past 3 months. And I want to walk through the station's maintenance tunnels myself. The tunnels? But the automated systems check those areas. Exactly. But I want to check them with human senses. Oliver looked at the screens again, watching the numbers that showed the station's rotation speed. Something's not right here, and I'm going to find out what it is. Margaret nodded slowly. I'll get you everything you need. Your quarters are ready, and you'll have full access to all station systems. As Oliver followed her out of the control room, he felt that small shake again. His Earth-trained senses were telling him something was very wrong with the station. Now he just had to figure out what it was before it was too late. The next morning, Oliver met Chief Engineer Emma Thorne in her office. She was younger than he expected, with red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and hands that showed signs of regular mechanical work. "So you're the Deathworlder they sent to check my station," Emma said, looking up from her computer screen. She didn't sound happy about it. "I've been running these systems for 3 years without any problems. I'm not here to take over your job," Oliver said calmly. "I'm here to help. Can you show me the rotation data from the past month?" Emma pulled up several charts on her screen. "Everything's within normal ranges. See for yourself." She pointed to the green lines that showed the station's rotation speed. Not even a 0.001% variation. Oliver leaned closer to the screen, but it wasn't the numbers he was focusing on. He could feel something in his inner ear, that same wrong feeling he'd noticed yesterday. "Let's do a physical walkthrough of the main rotation ring." Emma sighed but stood up. "Fine. But I've checked it myself twice this week." They took a maintenance cart along the station's main ring. The cart ran on tracks that followed the curve of the station, giving them access to all the critical systems. As they moved, Oliver kept his hand on the wall, feeling the vibrations. "Stop here," he said suddenly, about halfway through their tour. The cart came to a halt, and Oliver closed his eyes, focusing on his senses. "Do you feel that?" "Feel what?" Emma asked, checking her handheld scanner. "All readings are normal." "That's the problem. They shouldn't be." Oliver opened his eyes and pointed to a nearby panel. "The vibration pattern changes here. On Earth, predators learn to feel the smallest movements that might mean prey or danger. Right here, something's off." Emma looked skeptical but opened the panel. Behind it, dozens of cables and pipes carried power and data through the station's systems. Everything looked normal at first glance. "There." Oliver pointed to a small data cable near the back. "That cable's vibrating at a different frequency than the others." Emma scanned it with her device. "The readings say it's fine." "Trust human instincts for a moment," Oliver said. He pulled a small tool from his pocket, an old-fashioned mechanical pressure gauge. "This doesn't rely on the station systems. It measures physical pressure directly." He attached the gauge to the cable. The needle jumped slightly every few seconds, showing tiny pressure changes that the station's digital systems weren't catching. Emma's eyes widened. "That's impossible. The digital sensors should be 1,000 times more accurate than that old thing. Unless," Oliver said slowly, "someone programmed them to ignore these specific changes." He traced the cable's path with his finger. "Where does this line go?" Emma checked her station schematics. "It connects to the main rotation control systems, but it's just a backup line. It's not even supposed to be active right now." Oliver nodded. "Can you check if any data is flowing through it?" Emma tapped on her tablet, then frowned. "That's strange. The system says the line is dead, but it's warm to the touch. It shouldn't be warm if it's inactive." "Someone's sending hidden commands through this backup line," Oliver said. "Commands that don't show up on your main systems. That's why none of your scans found anything wrong." "But who would do that? And why?" Emma asked, now fully engaged in the mystery. "I don't know yet," Oliver replied, taking pictures of the cable setup with his personal device. "But they're clever. They knew the station's automated systems would only look for major problems, not tiny changes that build up over time." Emma started typing rapidly on her tablet. "I'm going to check all the backup lines now. If they compromised one, there might be others." "Good idea," Oliver said. "But first, I need you to do something else. Can you check the maintenance logs? I want to know everyone who's had access to this section in the past 3 months." "Already on it," Emma said, her earlier skepticism forgotten. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," Oliver said, looking down the curved corridor, "that someone's trying very hard to hide something. And on Earth, that usually means they're planning something big." The old pressure gauge continued to tick quietly, its tiny movements telling a story that all the station's advanced technology had missed. Human instincts, evolved over millions of years on a dangerous world, had found the first real clue to the mystery. Dr. James Harrison looked tired as he showed Oliver and Emma the medical bay's records on his computer screen. The station's medical officer had dark circles under his eyes, and his white coat was wrinkled from a long shift. "You're right, Lieutenant Wright," he said, pointing to a chart. "We've seen more people coming in with balance problems over the past month. I thought it was just a virus going around." Oliver leaned forward, studying the numbers. How many of these patients were human, and how many were alien? "That's the interesting part," James replied, clicking to another screen. "Out of 58 cases, only 3 were human. The rest were all different alien species." Emma crossed her arms. "But why wouldn't humans be affected as much? We're all living in the same station." "Because we're Deathworlders," Oliver said simply. "Our balance system evolved to handle much harder conditions. Small changes that make aliens dizzy might not even register for us." He turned to James. "Can you show me when these cases started coming in?" James pulled up a timeline. The first cases had appeared exactly 26 days ago, right when the station's problems began. But there was something else in the pattern. "Look at this," Oliver said, pointing to specific dates. "The cases come in groups, every 3 days." He looked at Emma. "Does that match any station maintenance schedules?" Emma checked her tablet quickly. "Yes, that's when the backup systems run their automatic tests." Her eyes widened. "The same systems connected to that cable we found." Oliver nodded. "Someone's using the test schedule to hide their actions. Every time the backups run, they're making small changes to the station's rotation." "But why?" James asked, looking worried. "Why make people sick?" "I don't think that's the goal," Oliver said. He started pacing, something he often did while thinking. "The sickness is just a side effect. They're testing something, making small adjustments, and watching what happens." Emma pulled up more data on her tablet. "The rotation changes are getting bigger each time. Still too small for most sensors to notice, but the pattern is clear now that we know what to look for." "Dr. Harrison," Oliver turned back to James, "can you give me a list of which alien species were affected first, and which ones started showing symptoms later?" James worked on his computer for a few minutes. "Here's the progression. The Floraxians were first, then the Mendusians, then the Talaxians." "Stop," Oliver said suddenly. "Read those again, but this time tell me the gravity of their home worlds." "Florix has 0.3 Earth gravity, Mendus has 0.5, and Talax has 0.7. James read, then looked up in surprise. "They're in order. The species from lower gravity worlds got sick first." "Exactly," Oliver said grimly. "Someone's slowly increasing the station's rotation, bit by bit. The aliens from low gravity worlds notice it first because they're more sensitive to gravity changes." Emma looked shocked. "But if they keep increasing it, eventually it will reach dangerous levels," Oliver finished. "The aliens will have to leave the station. Some already have. I checked the departure records this morning. 4 Floraxian families left last week." "This is deliberate," James said quietly. "Someone's trying to drive the aliens away." Oliver nodded, "and they're being very patient about it. Small changes, hidden in routine maintenance, affecting the most vulnerable first. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it would be too late." "We have to stop them," Emma said firmly. "But we still don't know who's doing this or how to prove it." "Actually," Oliver smiled slightly, "I think I know where to look next." He turned to James. "Doctor, I need one more thing from you. A list of all maintenance workers who came to the medical bay in the past month. Not for treatment, but just passing through or asking questions." "Why?" James asked, already turning to his computer. "Because if I'm right, our saboteurs have been watching their handiwork. They'd want to see the effects firsthand." Oliver's expression was serious. "And that might be how we catch them." As James pulled up the records, Oliver felt that familiar wrong sensation in his inner ear again. The station's rotation had just changed, so slightly that even most humans wouldn't notice. But Oliver did, and now he knew it wasn't an accident. Someone was attacking the station, and they had to be stopped before things got worse. The maintenance tunnels were dark and narrow, lit only by emergency lights spaced along the walls. Oliver crawled forward with Security Officer Isabel Fletcher right behind him. They had been exploring the hidden passages of Centauri Station Alpha for over 2 hours. "Are you sure about this?" Isabel whispered. She was new to station security, but Administrator Blackwood had recommended her because she was good at keeping secrets. "These tunnels are supposed to be empty." Oliver stopped moving and held up his hand for silence. In the quiet, they could hear a faint humming sound. "There," he said softly. "Do you hear that? It's coming from up ahead." They moved forward carefully. The tunnel here ran between 2 layers of the station's outer ring, where the main rotation mechanisms were housed. According to the station plans, this section should only contain backup power lines. "Look at this," Oliver said, pointing to a small box attached to the wall. It wasn't on any of the station's blueprints. New installation, maybe a week old. Isabel scanned it with her security device. No signal. It's shielded somehow. Oliver pulled out his old pressure gauge and held it near the box. The needle jumped wildly. "It's active, all right. Sending out pulses every few minutes." He checked his tablet, where Emma had loaded the rotation change data. The timing matches perfectly. They found 3 more boxes in the next 50 meters. Each one was carefully hidden behind pipes or panels, and none of them showed up on Isabel's scanner. But Oliver's simple mechanical tools detected them all. "This is bigger than we thought," Isabel said, taking pictures of each device. "These boxes must be what's controlling the rotation changes." Oliver nodded. "But they're not working alone. Look at the dust pattern on the floor." He pointed to faint marks in the thin layer of dust. "Someone's been through here recently. Multiple people, based on the different boot prints." Isabel studied the marks. At least 3 different sets of prints. "And look, they're all wearing station maintenance boots. Standard issue. Which means they have legitimate access to these tunnels," Oliver finished. He touched one of the walls and froze. "Wait, do you feel that?" "Feel what?" The vibration changed. "It's stronger now." Oliver checked his watch. Right on schedule. They're running another test. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered. Oliver's inner ear told him the station's rotation was changing faster than before. Something's wrong. This is a bigger change than the previous ones. Isabel grabbed her radio. "Fletcher to control. Are you seeing any rotation changes?" "Negative, Security Officer Fletcher," a calm voice replied. "All systems reading normal." "They've completely blinded the main systems," Oliver said. He pulled out his tablet and sent a quick message to Emma. "We need to get back. Now." They started crawling back the way they came, moving as fast as they could in the narrow space. Oliver's Earth-trained senses were screaming warnings at him. The gravity was noticeably stronger now, and the whole tunnel seemed to be vibrating. "Oliver," Isabel called from behind him. "Look at this." She pointed to a small marking on one of the boxes they had passed. In the dim light, they could just make out a symbol, a circle with a straight line through it. "I know that symbol," Isabel said. "It's used by Pure Space. They're extremists who think humans should have exclusive rights to space stations." "That matches what we found," Oliver replied. "They're trying to force the aliens to leave by making the station uncomfortable for them." He felt another vibration through the wall. But something's not right. These changes are happening too fast now. They're getting aggressive. They finally reached the tunnel exit and climbed out into a maintenance corridor. Oliver immediately contacted Emma, while Isabel called Administrator Blackwood. "Emma, check all the backup power routes to the rotation systems," he said urgently. "I think we just found their control devices, but something's changed. They're not being careful anymore." As if to prove his point, the station shuddered slightly. This time, even Isabel felt it. Oliver looked at her with concern. We need to move fast. If they're speeding up their timeline, we don't have much time left to stop them. The hidden devices in the tunnel continued their work, slowly but surely changing the station's rotation, while somewhere, the members of Pure Space watched their plan unfold. Administrator Blackwood's office was crowded with people. Oliver, Emma, Isabel, and Dr. Harrison stood around her desk, looking at the evidence they had gathered. On the main screen, images of the hidden devices from the maintenance tunnels were displayed alongside lists of station personnel. We've identified the leader, Isabel said, pulling up a personnel file. Robert Chandler, head of night shift maintenance. He's been with the station for 5 years. Oliver studied the man's picture. Chandler looked ordinary. Middle-aged, gray hair, friendly smile. What did you find in his background? He was perfect on paper, Emma said, scrolling through data on her tablet. But I dug deeper. 3 years ago, he tried to block the station's first alien engineering team from being hired. He said their low-gravity evolution made them unfit for the job. And look at this, Dr. Harrison added, showing his own findings. Every time the rotation changes happened, Chandler, or one of his close associates, was on duty. Margaret Blackwood looked troubled. How many people are involved? At least 6, Isabel replied. All maintenance workers, all human. They call themselves Pure Space. She displayed more personnel files. They believe rotating stations should be for humans only. They think our evolution on Earth makes us the only species truly suited for artificial gravity. Oliver felt the station shudder slightly. The changes are getting worse. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Emma nodded, checking her readings. The rotation speed has increased by 2% in the last hour. That's more than all the previous changes combined. We need to arrest them now, Isabel said, reaching for her radio. Wait, Oliver held up his hand. Something's not right. Why would they suddenly get so aggressive? They've been careful for months. Just then, the door chimed. A young maintenance worker stood there, looking nervous. Administrator, we found something in Maintenance Bay 3. You need to see this. They followed the worker down to the maintenance bay. Inside, hidden behind some storage containers, they found a makeshift control center. Screens showed views of different parts of the station, and a large display tracked the rotation changes. This is how they've been monitoring everything, Emma said, looking at the equipment. But where are they now? Oliver walked around the room slowly, taking everything in. His Earth-trained senses were telling him they were missing something important. Then he saw it, a small notebook, partially hidden under a keyboard. He opened it carefully. Inside were technical notes and calculations, but also something more disturbing. Look at this, he said, showing the others. They're not just trying to drive the aliens away. They're planning to take control of the entire station. The notebook contained details of a larger plan. The Pure Space Group had spent months setting up their devices, testing how different species reacted to gravity changes. But that was just the first phase. According to this, Oliver said, reading quickly, they're planning to lock down the station tonight. They'll use the rotation system to create gravity levels that only humans can tolerate. That would kill any aliens still on board, Dr. Harrison said, looking horrified. Margaret grabbed her comm unit. Security, full alert. Find Robert Chandler and his maintenance team immediately. Too late, a new voice said from the doorway. They turned to see Chandler standing there with 3 other maintenance workers. All of them held tools that could easily become weapons. We knew someone would eventually figure it out. We just didn't expect it to be another human. You're making a mistake, Chandler, Oliver said calmly, subtly moving to put himself between the Pure Space members and the others. No, you're the one making a mistake, Chandler replied. Humans built these stations. We evolved to live in changing gravity. The aliens are just guests who've overstayed their welcome. Oliver felt another shudder run through the station, stronger than before. What did you just do? Chandler smiled coldly. Phase 2 is starting early. In 30 minutes, this station's gravity will be too strong for any non-human to handle. They'll have to leave, or suffer the consequences. The lights flickered as another tremor shook the station. Oliver could feel that something was very wrong with the rotation now. They had to stop Chandler's plan. But first, they had to deal with the armed Pure Space members blocking their only exit. The situation in Maintenance Bay 3 was tense. Chandler and his Pure Space members blocked the only exit, while the station's rotation continued to increase. Oliver could feel the artificial gravity getting stronger with each passing minute. "You don't understand what you're doing," Oliver said, keeping his voice steady. "These rotation changes aren't just affecting the aliens anymore. They're damaging the station itself." As if to prove his point, a loud groaning sound echoed through the walls. Even Chandler looked worried for a moment. "Station alert," the computer's voice announced calmly. "Multiple system failures detected. Alien residents are advised to move to emergency shelters." Emma checked her tablet quickly. "The main ring is under too much stress. We're approaching dangerous levels." Chandler shook his head. "The station can handle it. It was built by humans, for humans." Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a red glow. Oliver heard panicked voices from the corridors outside. Station residents trying to understand what was happening. Dr. Harrison's comm unit buzzed. "Medical emergency in red section," a voice reported. "Multiple aliens experiencing severe gravitational distress." "Let me help them," Harrison pleaded with Chandler. "No one leaves," Chandler said firmly. "Not until it's done." Oliver felt another change in the rotation, bigger than any before. His Earth-trained body could handle it, but he knew the aliens on board would be suffering. Even some humans would start feeling the effects soon. Isabel moved closer to Oliver, whispering, "The security teams are 3 minutes out. We just need to keep them talking." But Oliver's instincts told him they didn't have 3 minutes. The station's groaning was getting louder, and he could feel vibrations through his feet that reminded him of earthquakes back on Earth. "Emma," he said quietly, "what happens if the rotation speed keeps increasing?" Emma's face was pale. The outer ring wasn't designed for this much stress. It could tear itself apart. "Chandler," Oliver tried again, "you've made your point. The aliens are evacuating. But if we don't stop this now, you'll destroy the whole station." "He's right," one of Chandler's own people said nervously. "The sounds. This doesn't feel right." A massive shudder ran through the station, strong enough to knock everyone off balance. Equipment crashed to the floor, and warning alarms started blaring throughout the station. "Critical failure imminent," the computer announced. "All residents proceed to emergency evacuation pods." Oliver saw his chance. While Chandler was distracted by the chaos, he launched himself forward, using his Earthborn strength to tackle 2 of the Pure Space members. Isabel moved at the same time, disarming another. "Emma, get to the control room," Oliver shouted as he struggled with the saboteurs. "Try to stabilize the rotation." Emma ran for the door, with Dr. Harrison right behind her. Chandler tried to stop them, but Administrator Blackwood, showing surprising strength, grabbed him from behind. The fight was short but violent. Even as they struggled, Oliver could feel the station's rotation becoming more erratic. His enhanced senses told him they were running out of time. Finally, Isabel's security team arrived, quickly subduing the remaining Pure Space members. But their victory was overshadowed by the station's continuing crisis. "Oliver." Emma's voice came through his comm unit. "The main control systems aren't responding. The sabotage goes deeper than we thought. I can't stop it." Another violent shudder rocked the station. Oliver heard metal screaming somewhere in the distance. "All residents proceed to evacuation pods immediately," the computer repeated. "Station structural integrity at critical levels." Oliver looked at the defeated Chandler, who was now in handcuffs. "How do we stop it?" "You can't," Chandler said, looking strangely calm despite the chaos. "The system is locked. The station will keep spinning faster until all the aliens are forced to leave. That's what we planned. Oliver felt another tremor and knew they were almost out of time. The station was shaking itself apart, but as he steadied himself against a wall, an idea started forming. A crazy idea that went against every safety protocol in the book. "Emma," he said into his comm unit, "I think I know how to save the station, but you're not going to like it." Oliver ran through the shaking corridors toward the main control room, his Earth-trained legs easily handling the increased gravity. Behind him, Isabel and 2 security officers dragged a handcuffed Chandler along. "Your plan is suicide," Emma shouted when Oliver explained his idea. She was working frantically at the control panel, trying to slow the station's deadly spin. "We can't make it spin even faster." "Yes, we can," Oliver insisted. "On Earth, when a spinning top starts to wobble, sometimes the only way to stabilize it is to spin it faster for a moment, then slow it down suddenly." Another violent shake rocked the station. Dr. Harrison's voice came through the comm system. "Medical Bay report. We have 23 aliens in critical condition from gravity stress. We need to do something now." Administrator Blackwood looked at Oliver. "Explain your plan again." "Simple terms. Chandler's devices are forcing the station to spin faster using the backup systems," Oliver said quickly. "We can't stop them. But what if we spin it up even faster, on purpose, using the main systems?" "That's crazy," Emma protested. "The strain could tear the station apart." "Or it could work," Oliver said. "Think about it. Right now, we have 2 systems fighting each other. The backup systems pushing one way, the main systems trying to resist. That's what's causing the wobble." The station's computer announced another warning. "Structural integrity at 30%. Evacuation strongly advised." "If we spin it up faster than Chandler's devices are programmed for," Oliver continued, "we might overload them. Then we can shut everything down at once and let the emergency brakes take over." Blackwood looked at Chandler. "Will it work?" Chandler laughed bitterly. "Our devices are programmed to keep increasing speed no matter what. You'll just make it worse." But Oliver noticed something in Chandler's expression, a flicker of worry when he mentioned overloading the devices. "You didn't program them to handle anything higher than Earth gravity, did you?" Oliver asked. "Because you never thought anyone would be crazy enough to go beyond that." Chandler's silence was all the answer they needed. "Margaret," Oliver turned to the administrator, "it's your call. But we need to decide now." Another violent shudder ran through the station. Warning lights flashed across every screen as more systems began to fail. Margaret Blackwood stood straight, looking every bit the station commander. "Do it." Oliver turned to Emma. "I need you to override all the safety protocols. Give me manual control of the main rotation systems." Emma hesitated for just a second, then her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Done." "But Oliver, this has never been tested. The mathematics say it should work, but..." "Sometimes you have to trust human instincts over mathematics," Oliver said, taking control of the system. "Everyone, grab onto something solid. This is going to get rough." Oliver began increasing the station's rotation speed. The artificial gravity grew stronger and stronger. Warning alarms blared as they passed the safety limits. "Hull stress critical," Emma shouted over the noise of straining metal. Oliver kept pushing. His body, evolved to handle Earth's punishing gravity, could still function, but he saw others struggling to move. Even Chandler looked terrified now. "Backup systems showing strain," Emma reported. "Power fluctuations in Chandler's devices." "Almost there," Oliver said through gritted teeth. His instincts, honed by millions of years of Earth's harsh conditions, told him exactly when to act. "Now," he shouted, and slammed his hand down on the emergency brake control. The station seemed to scream as all its systems engaged at once. People were thrown to the floor as the rotation suddenly slowed. Oliver felt the familiar sensation of his stomach lurching, like a falling elevator stopping abruptly. Then, gradually, the shaking began to decrease. The warning alarms started to quiet down one by one. "Backup systems offline," Emma reported, her voice filled with disbelief. "Chandler's devices are burned out. Main rotation stabilizing. Station structural integrity returning to normal parameters," the computer announced calmly. "Artificial gravity normalizing." Oliver helped Emma to her feet as others began picking themselves up. Through the control room's window, they could see the stars slowly steadying as the station's spin returned to normal. "It worked," Emma said quietly, then louder. It actually worked. The crisis was over. Human instincts, born from Earth's dangerous environment, had saved the station when advanced technology and careful planning had failed. The next day, Sarah decided to explore more of the old mansion. She walked down the long hallway on the second floor. Light came in through the tall windows. Dust floated in the beams of sunlight. Sarah came to a door at the end of the hallway. She turned the handle, and the door creaked open. Inside was a large room with sheet-covered furniture. An old piano sat in the corner. Curious, Sarah pulled the sheet off the piano. She pressed one of the keys and a note rang out, echoing in the empty room. Sarah smiled. She had always wanted to learn to play the piano. Just then, Sarah heard a thump from above her. It sounded like it came from the attic. Sarah looked up at the ceiling. What could be making that noise? She noticed a string hanging down from the ceiling. Sarah reached up and pulled it. A panel opened and a ladder slid down. It led up into the dark attic. Sarah took a deep breath. She was a little scared, but she wanted to see what was up there. Slowly, she climbed the ladder, heading into the unknown of the attic. When she got to the top, Sarah looked around. It was very dim, and everything was covered in dust and cobwebs. She spotted an old oil lantern on a box nearby. She picked it up and turned the knob. The lantern flickered to life, casting a warm glow. Holding up the light, Sarah could see the whole attic. It was full of old trunks and boxes. The air smelled musty. Sarah wondered what secrets and treasures might be hidden away up here. As she took a step forward, the floorboard creaked loudly under her foot. Sarah froze. She listened hard. Was something moving in the shadows? Sarah held the lantern higher, heart pounding as she peered into the darkness at the far end of the attic.